Welcome to the 9th episode of this 10-part series we call Retrospective. Today we talk about how we all feel about the art world as it stands today. In this episode, you will hear conversations with my fellow graduates in this order: Allison Goldberg, Amanda Marchand, Barbara Bartos, Brett Gottshaw, Erez Golan, Lizea Lyons, Mira Hecht, Peter Wu, Ricardo Rivera, Sonia Heinrichsen, and Yoram Wahlberger.
I'm not obsessed or consumed by it the way I was. Like, I don't look at magazines. If we go to New York or we go to visit my family in San Francisco, we'll maybe go to, a museum or a gallery, but I don't feel like, or DC has offered some good shows recently.
Love DC. My first internship in high school was at the Smithsonian.
Yeah. And it's free. So that's, how it should be. But I'm not obsessed with it the way I once was. Like, I feel like there are other things out there in the world that are, if I'm going to see as I would have, when I was making art or wanting to be, having that success, I would have been looking for inspiration. I would have been looking for someone who is like, approaching something in a new way. And I would have been looking like to find something beautiful. And I just feel like I've cultivated finding beauty in my everyday life, just in my home, and I have a garden and walking, and so that's been fulfilled, that need. Being inspired, I can read a story, I can, I find other ways. So what can I say?
I get it. It's great. Do you ever miss sort of participating in that, or do you feel like a great weight lifted off your shoulders?
I feel like a weight has been lifted. In terms of like living in a cultural mecca, the thing that I miss is not really art per se. I miss the diversity of a larger city, and I miss the food, but I don't miss like the art,
I do know.
It's a hard question. I guess one thing I feel is that there's not an art world, but there are many art worlds. There are different photographic worlds that you can operate in. I don't belong to them all. I think that if you can just sort of find a small pocket where you can fit in, that's good, and that becomes your community. I feel really great about the art world. I think that if you're at it for a long time, you figure a way in, and you can kind of create your own community. I think that's a good way to go. You start with maybe friends that have the same interests, or if you've been to school, some peers or teachers that you reach out to, that people on Instagram, that's a community. Some people don't love Instagram, but I think it's fantastic for photographers. And just even what you're doing with your podcast, there must be people that you can, stay in touch with, that you could create a community around that. It's whatever you want to do. And I'm sort of an introvert, but I love people, I figured out. So I sort of moved beyond my, inner confidence. And I just love, an example would be the residencies I do. I'll meet people that are curators. I'll meet people that are choreographers, musicians, painters, such creative types that move beyond, different definitions. And they're so inspiring. I just learn so much from all the different disciplines and all the different people that are out there as makers. It's pretty phenomenal. And so I feel, as I said a minute ago, I feel really grateful, and I'm super passionate about this world, whatever it is. I know it's different things to different people. So that's what I feel.
Being an artist doesn't always mean having your own personal studio practice. You can still be creative and sort of scratch that itch in many different ways. So I love the idea that the the idea of like working in the arts is to me a much more expansive thing these days than it was even 20 years ago. Like 20 years ago was pretty much curator, gallery, museum, or sit in a studio, and like that's all there was for arts. But now there are so many varieties of different ways and things we can do, and I kind of enjoy that, and I kind of am a little sad that I'm not of this generation like with these opportunities, but whatever.
I mean, part of that is I'm not a solitary artist. I work with an immense amount of people to get the work into the world and to get the work made. I work with an amazing lab in Manhattan, and it's an amazing printer there, and they help me produce my work. Like once the idea is there, there's the production side. So there's the DATS Press in South Korea. They produce my books. The galleries that I work with are collaborative and, putting on shows. And I owe so much to other people that collaborate with me in all of these ways. I do, there's some of it that comes like in this little world of the studio that is mine, but then it takes all these partners to and something you're doing with the podcast is having these conversations. I mean, about art and trying to figure out for maybe people that are younger trying to get into the scene, what are the useful tools that I can take away from this? So, you're imparting information there. That's really important too, the communication part of it.
I'm impressed of how many people make it in a small way. It's such a variety. There's such a spread. There's such a density. The visual is like going. There are no parameters. There is nothing you can criticize. There are no basis on which to criticize anything. I feel like you could make it on a small scale. Like you could have an Instagram feed that you could sell from. Like people like really going nuts for your work. And in your own thing, you create you have your own community. You're not going to be Maurizio Catalan, but you're making work you like. You find people who like you because the social has opened that, I have to say. And you could feel like you're making a living out of your own work. It can be done. I mean, you could even find a gallery that sees your feed and show your work. I mean, but that's that. So there could be many like this. In terms of like going big, I don't know how much counts who you know. There are definitely people who really work it, but I'm not the person who really work the system, who push to curators, who show up, to send, who call people, who like. I feel like it's. I never looked for that career, so I don't care. If people find me, they find me because they like their thing, and I let it go from there. So, what do I think about the art world? It's kind of a no man's land, really. The galleries do their thing. Instagram does its thing. College professors do their thing to get their tenure, to get their thing. Like they don't seem to be talking. I don't think, what's the big show at the Whitney Biennial? sees this guy's Instagram feed, he might be making lots of money out of his good work. But he never tried to apply to a gallery. He never tried to push. He just shows his work. And I'm not going to go into conceptual because we're going to get nuts. Because, again, what is art?
No, I don't want to go into what is art.
Because, you can start saying, oh, well, the guy on Instagram doesn't make art.
I'm a horrible snob. I would say things like that, yes.
I've seen good work. That's, they're painters.
Oh, well, okay. Painters is a little different, but I mean, I'm thinking like the digital illustrators.
No. That's not what I was thinking. It's like they're painters who can show their work just on Instagram. You're never gonna see his work in a moment.
Yeah, if they're using a traditional medium, I have no problem with like elevating an Instagram artist above just an Instagram artist. But if they're using, for lack of a better word, like sort of just like digital mediums to then show it digitally.
That's way too much. That's an inflation of that stuff. No.
It's a little too meta for me. Like maybe I'm just old.
No,
like
but
that.
I'm not. I wasn't speaking of that. I was speaking of Instagram as a medium to create market for your work.
I understand.
Without actually going through the traditional ways of like sending slides to gallery, like we did 20 years ago.
The amount of money I spent on slides.
I still
ridiculous.
Have them.
Yeah, I still have them.
I feel like I'm negative, too negative, or
It's perfectly fine to be negative. Like this is the point is to hear. No, I mean, the point is to hear different perspectives. And if you have a negative perspective at this point, great. Okay, express that. When I edit it all together, it'll be balanced out with other people's positive ones. So don't stress about that.
No, I'm not saying, I'm not necessarily negative about things right now. I'm just like, I guess I'm more lost. I don't understand. I'm lost and I'm having a hard time finding a solution because it's not like it's looking, things will get more coherent soon. Anzi, the opposite, as anzi in Italian. The lack of, you can't say anything at this point, and this is general, not just artwork, but you can say left without 10 people saying, no, that's better on the right. I mean, there are no values on which to judge a work, an image, an idea. Everybody's right, everybody's wrong. So to me, I guess making work comes to reference the personal. It's the only fixed place I have. What's true to me, and it may find universality in it, but so, and in a way it goes back to this. If you find your center, you'll figure it out. You'll figure out if you want to be in the art world. You figure out if you want to get out of it. You figure out if art school is really the piece that's missing. Maybe you do need the critiques. You've been working, but you had no feedback. And even bad feedback is good feedback if you know how to take it, if you know how to learn from it. In a sense, not that listening to the bad feedback, but learning from it becomes good. Learning who to listen to. Okay, so or just getting to hear how people, like, for example, very, very, very small parentheses. I was making work in America about stuff that I couldn't even say the word spiritual. And if I would dare to say this in California, guess what happened? I was, like new agey. That's good feedback. That taught me how to talk about my work without saying the word. While I was there, I came back in Europe. Now, the first thing I said, the first thing I was told after I made a presentation here, your work is spiritual. Like, like you said the word. I've never mentioned it, but they got it, and it wasn't shameful. So feedback, even bad feedback counts. It helps. Learn to learn yourself. That's my advice. Good for everything.
I think that it's a positive turn now. Like we've talked about a little bit, everything focus coming back onto the artist, where the gallery situation and need to have one to make money or to be successful or whatever isn't as important. I don't think. To me, I think that with the tools we have now, the internet, the connection with other people, and ability to reach and to show your work to a large number of people with some ease, and if you can promote yourself, advertise your stuff to all those people with ease, then there's a chance that you're gonna succeed. If you're genuine in your practice, you would probably succeed. So I like that this the change in what you need to do to be successful is now coming back onto the individual person and making it easier for people to keep making art. And I love that, although there's a lot of really crappy stuff out there, I love that. We need that too. I mean, there's a bigger market for crappy stuff than there is for good stuff.
Look at Bed Bath & Beyond. Look at IKEA.
Right.
They all have poster crap art, but people buy it.
I know. I mean, they could have stopped at just Bed Bath, but it's beyond, my friend. So there's, you could put yourself into any of these markets, and especially the crap market. You could probably do really well making crap. So, a lot of people like it. So I like that. That's the turn. The way that I see it, it's opened up, and the artist has a better chance now. And I think that more art will get made, and more of the good stuff is going to get seen. The stuff that that was on the back side of things, or behind the curtain, or it's a better time now for artists to make art and be seen. So I think the outlook is good.
I still, I read about art and I go to shows. Actually, we're having I think in January, we had to buy tickets because of the COVID. You can't just go to a museum now. You have to buy ticket in advance. And there's a great show of this Japanese artist who was, she was kind of a guerrilla artist back in the 60s. And now she's super mainstream and doing a lot of work with dots. So
Yes.
we're going to see that. So, but honestly, the last few times I went to a museum, we were in London just before the COVID, and I went to the Tate, and then here in Israel, haven't had a chance to see anything in the U.S. Just haven't been there for a long while. But honestly, the fact that I still know all the artists' names, even though I haven't been too immersed in the art life, I think that's not a good sign for the art world. I mean, not too much has changed.
In some ways, it's very true. Yes.
Yeah, there was just an article the other day about this really gazillionaires couple being divorced in the U.S.
Yep.
And it says, this was probably one of the best things that happened to art in the last decade, where they're selling. They're because of the divorce they're going through. They couldn't agree on the price of the collection. They ended up having to sell it through, I think it was either Sotheby's or Christie's, one of the big auction houses. And they said, that was like a real boost for the art world in the last, that needed to happen because it's been kind of frozen for the last 2 years or so. And then they showed the pieces of art that they were selling, and they were all talking about Nine-Faced Marilyn by Andy Warhol. It's like, seriously, we're 2021 and we're talking about pop art? Come on.
And I saw the Giacometti sculpture that was in that, which I love that piece. So I was
That
very
was, I
like,
think,
oh,
that was the most expensive piece that they were selling.
it was a beautiful
So what
piece.
happened? I mean, we're still talking about Andy Warhol and Giacometti, honestly.
I feel pretty disconnected on some level. I mean, I really love going back to New York and seeing art. You know, of course, it's like now that it's not around the corner, I'm like, oh. But we have a museum here that has pretty interesting photography exhibits, but I'm not connected with any of the local art people or anything like that. And could I try harder? Yeah. I wasn't super connected I mean, I connected with people that show at the gallery where I show in New York because it's a good group and she has a lot of women and like a lot of women my age. And so that community was really nice and I felt connected to those people. And actually, so talk about practices, like I'm going back to the thing of like looking online for juried exhibitions. I mean, that's like what we used to do then too.
No, back then we did it in the back of publications.
It was not online, correct. But it was like sending your work in and like hoping for a response. And I've actually gotten into a few things lately and it's like, oh, okay. If I put in the effort and take myself seriously and take my career seriously, like there's something there. So I feel like I need to make more of an effort. So it's not, I'm not so, you know, oh, the art world is not what it used to be and I don't fit in and all that. Like, all right, you got to figure out a way to fit in. And no, I'm not going to do a COVID project. I never was and I never will. And I don't care.
I do portfolio reviews for Lens Culture online, like they do these anonymous portfolio reviews. And the amount of fucking COVID series that I've seen are so stupid, and just boring and dumb. I mean, I hate it. But I'm also the kind of person that like, I like my art to be timeless. And anything that is like about COVID has a very small window of time where that will ever be interesting.
Right. I mean, if you're going to make work about being isolated or fearful or any of that, like, I think to me, it's more of a universal concept. And I don't know. I think I'm a little bit bitter because I was like, well, I didn't get some project done. Everyone assumed I would because I had all this time. But no, that's not how that works. So in terms of the art world now, there is that struggle of like, I think a lot of people do make work to fit in. And if you're not willing to do that, you have to be willing to own it and stand behind it and say, I'm making this and this is why. And I'm going to keep going. So
It's tough. I mean, not every day, but like a lot of time I'm sitting around going like, am I ahead of the curve? Am I behind the curve? Or am I on the bubble? And I never know. And I never will.
right. I know, because I mean, it really is like interdependent on like who sees it or, you know, who's interested at that moment.
Do you remember Mark Van Proyen's thing about the ocean crashing and then the reef and all that? Do you remember this?
No, tell me.
Okay, he had this theory. He actually like drew it on the board and everything. That an art's career is like a wave. Okay, so like you ride a wave of success, and then sooner or later that wave is going to crash onto the beach, and then you're the water. So and then you're going to be swept out, and then at some point the water is either you're going to evolve and change and grow, and you will be caught back up in another wave of success throughout your career, or you will end up sort of just falling out into the reef, and you'll be just out in the reef among the average mediocre artists, and it's exponentially more difficult to get from the reef back up into the next wave. So that the role of an artist is to ride success and then crash and then evolve and grow and change and find another way to ride another wave, and that like if you can learn to do that successfully, that you'll be able to build a beautiful career. That's the advice I got in grad school.
But I think that's pretty accurate. And I think it's also incredibly difficult. And I mean, I think a lot of people do stuff that is safe, or, I think that, being with that like discomfort of like making work that might suck or get rejected or not be interesting when you put it out there, I think that's really hard.
But that's every day.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And I think some people just don't verbalize that though. Like you and I can be like, this is hard. Oh my God, this stresses me the fuck out. Whereas someone else is like, well, I'm just, moving along and very organized about it. And that's just not who I am.
Yeah, no, I'm the kind of guy I'll sit back, like these days, I'll sit back and work on just trying to find the right mediums and the right techniques and the right scale and the right whatever. And I'll test and test and test for like 3 years until I finally find the thing that sort of visually expresses the way I wanted to share this thing. And then I can work on the project for, until that idea has sort of run its course. But like I will put 3-4 years into just testing.
But that's great. I mean, I think you're giving yourself that space and that latitude to do that. Whereas, like, I go back to being impatient and like, well, this is not going to work, or it doesn't even get out of my head half the time. So,
Lizea, get to work.
seriously,
I feel like it's a lot of pressure. A lot of pressure. It's just, I see the only social media I do is Instagram. And so I can see that, people will put work on there. It looks like they're machines, it's like they're making and making, or they'll put stuff on that they made 10 years ago. It's just like this pressure to get work out there, or I don't know. And so I think to myself, I'm not a machine. The work I make takes a long time. Each painting could take months or a year. That's just the way my work is. And so often I think I have to speed it up. I have to stop using oil. I have to do acrylic. I can't take 6 months to do a painting. This isn't viable. I won't make any money. So there's just a lot of pressure today. And I keep trying to, just stay in my own space, just realize this is the way I make art. This is the way I'm going to continue making it. If I only make, 12 paintings a year, that's the way it is. You can only sell as much as you make. And I just can't think of myself as like a machine making art, like I'm a woman making art, a person, an artist making art at my own rate, at my own speed. And so, yeah, I think it's just a lot of pressure. Galleries, it's a pressure to get into galleries. If that's the route you want to go, a lot of people don't want to do that route anymore. They want to find other avenues to sell the work. I'm very grateful to be in 2 wonderful galleries. But of course, galleries take 50%, and a lot of artists don't want to do that anymore. There's so many other ways to sell art, I think, which I haven't really looked into. But I mean, I see it all over the place, nonprofits and people are trying to sell through Instagram. And, it's totally different today than it was 20 years ago.
The art world wasn't built for me. It never even really wants me in a certain respect. Okay, so that was a tough lesson to learn, and I think and all those feelings really was at the height during the Black Lives Matter movement during the summer of 2020, and that really kind of made you realize, like, shit, the structure isn't for me, So how do I re-envision it? And how do I navigate even beyond capitalism or whatnot, or how do I reflect the things that I am upset about or wanting to be subversive about? So I think that's a lot what I do with the gallery is I turn everything back on the structure in a certain way, and then I built even like within the economically of how I sell the NFTs. the smart contract I created, which hasn't been really implemented anywhere else, is that whoever's participating in the shows gets a certain cut of the exhibition. So 80% or 70% goes directly to all the artists, 30% stays with the gallery, and it's automatically through the blockchain, goes directly to their wallets. So and it's international, so I don't actually have to worry about paperwork or anything like that. So it's directly into their wallets, and they're also part of the co-curators of the exhibition, because their address or their identity is attached to the NFT that I'm creating. So it's in a way, blockchain for me has been able to allow me to think about new ways of doing small communities and re-envision economics in a certain way that maybe work for artists more so than this current structure that is imposed on us right now, which is more like the 50-50 gallery model. And of course, you have to placate to a gallery to be able to even get in a gallery. And that comes with a lot of other things, because you're playing that game, and that game isn't usually for people like us. So it's that, or if you do have some success, then most of the time that success isn't as long lasting for other people than for other people that are included in that space. So I think for me, I think with this new technologies, I'm able to actually re-envision what could be, and what could be a better place. You know what I'm saying? Now, whether that is or is not, that's a different question. But I'm trying. I'm attempting to do that, and I think I've done it quite successfully to this point. And I've successfully brought out a lot of issues within my exhibitions about representation, about the fragility of the institution. Even so, more so that I did a show called Phantom Limb, where I took the Amundsen building that was being destroyed from LACMA, and I remodeled that as a demolished LACMA building, and then curated basically all Latinx artists from Los Angeles within it. I thought that was one of the best shows I've done during that point. And then I usually get 3 to 5 pieces of press per exhibition, but nobody wanted to write about the LACMA show. And that says to me, no one wanted to go against the man or the institution. And I thought that was important too. But funny enough, the LACMA has just recently approached me, and now we're doing a collaboration on an NFT, and they're including the Algorand blockchain, which this is the blockchain I work with, into some of their provenance and some of their collections. And then we'll be releasing an NFT collaboration of their recent art and lag tech recipients in February. But they have given me pretty much full creative control. Otherwise, I would not have done it. You know what I'm saying? So in a way, it all worked out in a certain way. So and look forward to that. That's going to be pretty cool.
Fabulous. It sounds like you're sort of on a good path at this point.
Yeah, it was organic. You know, everything that I've done is organic, even knowing that I had to do, preparative work for a long time. And then the knowledge I've got from working in a gallery and showing within the galleries, being a teacher, and all these things have accumulated to where I am now, and so when I'm following whatever it is, the universe or something like that, or the opportunities that are given to me and what feels right or not, I've turned down a lot of things. And I'm okay with saying no, because if the project does not align with me or my beliefs, I will turn it down. Most of the time, these are the projects that they just want to make money at, money grabs, I call them, or whatever. So I usually turn those down a lot, because that's not for artists. That's not for what I believe in. So I usually turn those down. And the projects that are people actually trying to change things, trying to change the structure that has been imposed upon us, those are the projects I usually pick up and I support, and I will help out all much as I can.
I don't care about it. It comes into my mind through social media, when I read the New Yorker, when I see my friends doing really well. I always want to support them. That's my participation in the art world, and my desire to participate in the art world. It's not my main concern. My main concern is living. And I'm actually starting kind of this new life right now, because I just met one of the most amazing persons in the world. She's a professor of philosophy, and she's just blowing my mind. And I really love having conversations with her, and she's really not encouraging. It's not encouragement. It's acceptance of the way that I think, and she's really influencing and actually turning my whole art making process upside down, because she has the worldview that's outside of the arts, and she's very comfortable calling bullshit on me. When we're talking to other art people, we are in this sphere and we're already in agreement. And it's hard to counter it because we've gone to the same education or similar education, similar experience. So with Carrie, she has a degree in philosophy and a degree in classics. So she has this whole experience of knowledge base or access to this knowledge base and understanding of our culture, of the human culture or human being since we started thinking. So she says, well, what if like, for example, you're drawing and you've been drawing and you're drawing what's out there. And she tells me, well, what if I tell you that what you're drawing's in here? And I'm just like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like a total shift in my thinking. And that's what I love. I went to art school because I saw it as intellectual stimulation. I went to school because it was something that I was not getting through popular culture. And I wanted that. I wanted to understand things and be able to talk about them in not a sophisticated way, but just naturally.
It's very unpredictable and that it's very hard and difficult. It's hard to get into anything, at least for me, and that it's not always fair. And I don't know, it's just something that is very hard to even grasp and to even get an idea of. Well, if you are asking me what I think about the art that is happening right now, I think that is a different question. And that is also, I think the art has very much changed since we graduated. It is much more socially engaged now. It is addressing social, political, environmental issues and agendas, and is much more overtly telling a story or making a statement than at the time when we were graduating from art school. And that is actually something I really like about the arts now. That's something that I think is amazing, that the arts has so much more voice now, or is using their trade, their ability, their media, their different media to voice themselves and to make statements in this crazy world. The world also has gotten much more crazy within those 20 years since we graduated. So that is actually something I appreciate about the art world now. I have to say that. Yeah. And I think that actually maybe that started, or the first time I noticed it very overtly was, of course, with Trump. I mean, actually, it happened long before that. It started happening before that. But with Trump, it was really here in the Bay Area, just like so out there. It was really cool in a way.
When you talk about the art world, can you explain more? What do you mean?
I know, it's so bad because like
I
there's
know,
the
it's like, what
industry,
is-
then there's the museums, then there's the sales and the commercial. I know, it's really hard. What do I
Look,
mean?
as far as the pandemic, my gallery always like when he has no work from me or no one is like he's blaming it on like the pandemic or the crash of the this or so it's another one of those things that the gallery can justify why no one maybe is calling them for my art. I don't think that the pandemic is going to affect too much the art world. It's affecting our lives, so obviously people are going to react to it as if they're reacting to their everyday life. Even the Zoom call that we're doing, I don't know if we would not as easily do it before. Look, for me, the fact that my company my day job is remote, that's enabling me to do a lot of things that I couldn't do. So everyone has a personal it's affecting them personally different. As a community, it's definitely going to change the way we live for the short time or maybe long. So artists will react to it, I'm sure. But I don't feel it. The art world, if it means the art world outside of my art world, if that's what you mean, I don't feel any effect on me. There is how it's affecting my bubble, but that's the only thing. That's not your question. I don't even know anymore what art world means, because in many ways, for in certain time, I kind of disconnected myself from that, what it's called the art world. I'm not going to galleries. I'm not going to museums. I haven't been to one for a while, and I don't stay in touch with the gallery world, and I just do my own thing. But I am reading a lot about it, and I look, through the internet, I see what other people doing. I don't see any changes. I don't see anything happening that is different.
To wrap this up, I'd like to thank you for listening all the way to the end of the conversation. We would appreciate it if you would share the podcast with your friends, family, coworkers, studio mates, or anybody with an interest in arts and creative endeavors. The building and strengthening of the arts and creative community is at the core of our mission for this podcast. They can listen and subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or wherever you get your podcasts. We are produced by 5014. The audio was edited by Kush Audio Services, and the music was created by Pete Bybee. The Wise Fool Art Podcast is supported in part by an EEA grant from Iceland, Liechtenstein, and Norway in an effort to work together for a green, competitive, and inclusive Europe. We would also like to thank our partners Hunt Kastner in Prague, Czech Republic, and Kunstsentrene i Norge in Norway. Links to EEA grants and our partner organizations are available in the show notes or on our website, wisefoolpod.com.